My name is Martha D. Hunt, and I am 29 years old. I am sitting alone in my new apartment, watching my phone light up again and again with his name, and I do not answer. I haven't answered since yesterday, since the apartment we shared became empty, and he finally understood I was already gone. I live hundreds of miles away now, and the distance feels intentional, earned. What still echoes in my mind isn't the silence, but the laugh that started everything. 2 weeks ago, we were at Marcus and Jenna's place for dinner. 6 of us around their table, wine glasses half empty, conversation loose in that comfortable way it gets when people feel safe. My boyfriend had been charming all night, arm around my chair, joking easily. He had 3 glasses of wine by the time dessert came out. The conversation drifted to money the way it always does when couples pretend it's hypothetical. Whose friend married well? Who had family money? Who never had to worry? That was when he laughed and gestured at me with his glass and said it, loud enough for everyone to hear. She's cute for now, but I'm going to marry someone rich. The room didn't just go quiet, it went still. Marcus stared at his plate. Jenna's smile froze mid-expression. I felt the weight of everyone waiting to see how I would react. I looked at him, and for a split second, I saw the moment where he realized he might have gone too far. He laughed again, louder this time, like volume could erase intent. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't ask him what he meant, because I already knew. I kept my tone calm and said the only honest thing left. Makes sense. Then I stood up, cleared my plate, and asked Marcus if he wanted help with the dishes. The conversation moved on like a bad scar covered with clothing. My boyfriend kept drinking. He touched my arm twice that night, checking my temperature, trying to read me. I stayed polite. I smiled when required. I didn't bring it up in the car. That night, he fell asleep in minutes. I stayed awake until 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling, feeling something inside me settle into place. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was clarity. We had been together for 2.5 years. We moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Denver 6 months earlier, split rent evenly, talked about the future in that vague, safe way people do when they're not ready to commit but don't want to leave either. He worked in marketing. I worked in tech. I lived carefully, saved aggressively. He spent easily, liked nice things, liked the idea of being surrounded by success. I never judged him for it. Money is personal. But I noticed the comments. Whose boyfriend bought a car? Whose fiancé had family money? Who lived in the right neighborhood? At first, I thought it was normal dreaming. Then it started to feel like evaluation. Red flags are easy to ignore when someone is affectionate in private. He cooked when I was stressed. He laughed at my bad jokes. He told me he loved me first. But somewhere underneath, I realized I was being auditioned. Not for who I was, but for who I might become financially. That dinner party didn't change things. It exposed them. The next morning, while he slept with his arm draped over my waist, I got up quietly, made coffee, opened my laptop, and scrolled through recruiter emails I had ignored for months. There was one from a firm in another state, senior role, pay bump, relocation included. I had been hesitating because moving would mean asking him to uproot his life. After what he said, the hesitation vanished. I replied before he woke up. For the next 7 days, I moved through our shared life like a ghost who already knew the ending. On the surface, nothing changed. I woke up at the same time, made the same coffee, sat on the same side of the couch, scrolling through my phone while he showered. I laughed at the right moments. I nodded when he talked about work. I even went to brunch with him that Sunday, sitting across from him in our usual spot, listening to him complain about prices and service while I quietly planned my exit. Inside, everything was different. The morning after the dinner party, I had already reopened conversations with recruiters I'd politely brushed off, months earlier. There were 5 emails in my inbox by noon. 2 were local roles I wasn't interested in. One was a long shot, another was a courtesy follow-up. The 5th was the one that mattered. A position out of state, senior level, 30% pay increase, relocation package. I had interviewed twice already, mostly out of curiosity, telling myself I wasn't ready to leave Denver yet. Now I was ready. I scheduled the final interview for Tuesday morning, took it from a quiet coffee shop 3 blocks from our apartment, and answered every question with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. I wasn't distracted by whether my answer sounded impressive enough for someone else's standards. I spoke honestly about my work, my goals, and the kind of environment I thrived in. The call lasted 90 minutes. When it ended, I closed my laptop and sat there staring at the wall, knowing something irreversible had just been set in motion. He didn't ask where I'd gone that morning. He never did. He was confident in the assumption that I would always orbit his plans. By Thursday afternoon, the offer arrived: base salary, signing bonus, stock options, full relocation coverage, start date in 3 weeks. I accepted it within the hour. I signed the contract from my phone while standing in the grocery store aisle, my cart half full, my hands steady. It felt surreal how quiet the moment was. No announcement, no confrontation, just a decision. That night, he asked if I wanted to order Thai food. I said yes. We ate on the couch, watched half a movie, and went to bed. He fell asleep holding my hand. I lay there listening to his breathing, realizing how strange it was to feel nothing but distance. The logistics came next. On Friday, I called our landlord, Ron. I told him I was relocating for work and needed to break the lease. There were 8 months left. I offered a 2-month penalty and to forfeit my portion of the security deposit. Ron paused, then said he appreciated the honesty. He said he could re-rent the unit quickly. We agreed to sign the paperwork the following Monday. That weekend, my boyfriend went on a guys' night trip to celebrate a friend's promotion. I stayed home, surrounded by boxes I hadn't bought yet, and plans I hadn't told anyone about. I rented a small storage unit across town, paid 3 months up front, and started moving things slowly. Clothes I didn't wear often, books he never noticed, work files, kitchen items I had brought into the relationship. Each trip to the storage unit felt like exhaling. When he came back Sunday night, he asked what I'd done all weekend. I said I caught up on work. He nodded, already distracted by his phone, telling me about the trip without noticing that half my closet looked lighter. Monday morning, I met Ron at his office and signed the lease termination. He wished me luck when I told him where I was going. That night, my boyfriend asked if I wanted to plan another dinner party soon. I smiled and said we'd see. Wednesday, I bought boxes and packing tape during my lunch break. I hid them in the trunk of my car. Thursday, I printed something important at FedEx. A glossy photo of my new office view, glass walls, skyline, water stretching into the distance. I slid it into a plain white envelope and wrote one sentence on the card inside. Friday night, he told me he was leaving early Saturday for a weekend trip. I kissed him goodbye and told him to have fun. He had no idea it was the last time he'd see me in that apartment. At 7:45 the next morning, the movers arrived. The movers were efficient in the way only people who do this for a living can be. 3 men in matching shirts walked through the apartment once, asked which items were mine, and nodded like they already understood the situation without needing details. I had labeled everything clearly: bedroom, office, kitchen, nothing vague, nothing shared. By 9:30, my bed frame, dresser, desk, bookshelves, and every box I had packed were stacked neatly in the truck. The couch stayed. The television stayed. His coffee table stayed. His shoes were still lined up by the door, like nothing had changed. I walked through the apartment one last time while the truck door closed outside. The place looked exactly the same, just emptier, like a stage after the main character exits. His clothes were still in the closet. His toiletries still lined the bathroom sink. The wedding planning binder sat untouched on the counter. I didn't move it. I didn't need to. I placed the envelope in the center of the kitchen counter where he wouldn't miss it. Inside was the printed photo of my new office view and the single sentence I had written without anger or explanation. Found someone rich, me. Good luck with your search. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. I locked the door, slid my key under the mat, and followed the truck to the storage unit. By noon, everything I owned was stacked inside a concrete room with my name on the lock. I stood there for a moment, hands on my hips, feeling something close to relief, but not quite letting myself name it yet. Then I drove to a hotel near the airport, checked in, turned my phone face down, and slept harder than I had in months. He called 16 times the next day. I was 35,000 feet in the air when the first voicemail came through. I didn't listen until I landed. His voice was sharp and confused at first, demanding to know where I was, why the apartment was empty, why my furniture was gone. The second voicemail accused me of playing a joke. The third mentioned the landlord. By the fourth, his voice cracked. I sent one message at 3 p.m, Seattle time. You said you were going to marry someone rich. I decided to become that for myself. Then I blocked his number. The fallout was immediate. Jenna messaged me privately that night. She said my boyfriend had shown up at their place crying, insisting I had left without warning over a joke. She asked what really happened. I told her the truth, exactly as it happened, without embellishment. She didn't respond for almost an hour. When she did, she said she thought he had been drunk, that she hadn't realized how serious it sounded. Then she added something that made my stomach sink and settle at the same time. She sent me a screenshot. It was from a group chat he had with his friends and his ex-girlfriend months earlier. In it, he had written that I was great, but not his endgame, that he didn't plan to stay in a mid-tier apartment forever, that he wanted the kind of life his ex had after marrying into money. The timestamp predated the dinner party by weeks. The words felt heavy, but they didn't surprise me. Another message came in from Marcus. He said the narrative was already shifting, that people were asking questions, comparing stories, noticing inconsistencies. He said my boyfriend was panicking, that he hadn't expected me to actually leave. I didn't respond. The engagement ring arrived 2 days later in a small box with no return address. Inside was the ring I had once admired in the sunlight, the ring he had talked about like it was a promise. A short note said if I was really done, I could take it back. I took it to a jeweler that afternoon, sold it, and donated the money to a women's career advancement fund. I kept the receipt in my wallet, not as proof for anyone else, but as a reminder for myself. By the end of the week, the calls had slowed. The messages grew shorter. Questions replaced accusations. Are you really not coming back? Is this really over? I didn't answer any of them. Silence had become my boundary. When I started my new job that Monday, no one knew anything about my past life. I was introduced to my team, shown my desk, handed my first assignment. I unpacked my things in a new apartment overlooking the city and set my desk by the window. It felt like starting over without having to apologize for it. He kept trying to reach me through friends, through email, through social media accounts I didn't know existed. Each attempt felt more distant than the last. The truth was already out there, moving faster than any explanation I could give. He had told everyone exactly who he was. I had just believed him. By the 4th week, his shock had hardened into something sharper. Control doesn't disappear quietly. It looks for another door. When my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize, I ignored it. When the voicemail came in anyway, I listened once, then deleted it. It was his mother, her voice clipped and formal, telling me what I had done was inappropriate, immature, and deeply hurtful to her son. She said real women didn't abandon relationships without a conversation. She said I owed him closure. I sat on the edge of my bed in my new apartment and laughed softly. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. Closure was the thing people demanded when they lost control. An email followed, this one from him, subject line begging me to read it. It was long and apologetic in the way messages are when someone realizes leverage has slipped through their fingers. He said he hadn't meant it. He said the dinner party joke was taken out of context. He said he was stressed, scared, misunderstood. He promised therapy, promised change, promised to listen. He said he loved me. I read it once, slowly, then archived it. Love doesn't arrive after respect leaves. It doesn't show up when consequences finally do. Then he showed up. I was walking into my office building for lunch when I saw him standing in the lobby, hands shoved into his pockets, eyes scanning the doors like he was waiting for something to make sense. For a split second, my body reacted before my mind did. A familiar tightening. Then it passed. He said my name like it was still his to say and asked if we could talk, just for a minute. I told him there was nothing to talk about. He apologized again, out loud, where people could hear. He named the honeymoon comment, the apartment talk, the money jokes. He said he hadn't realized how much it hurt me. I looked at him and felt nothing move inside my chest. No anger, no sadness, just space. I told him he hadn't realized because he hadn't been paying attention. I told him that change now would be for the next woman, not for me. When he reached for my arm, I stepped back and said, "Don't." The word landed heavier than anything else I could have said. He asked if that was really it. I told him I was done the moment he made me temporary in public. Everything after that was logistics. I walked past him and into the elevator without looking back. After that, the collapse sped up. He couldn't afford the apartment alone. The wedding plans he'd bragged about quietly dissolved. Deposits were lost. Friends stopped defending him. Once screenshots circulated and stories lined up. I heard he moved back in with his parents, a grown man sleeping in his childhood bedroom, surrounded by the same voices that taught him money equaled worth. He tried dating again. It didn't go well. Apparently women don't respond well to being evaluated like a resume. His social media went dark. No more curated posts, no more subtle flexes, just absence. Months later, another email came from his mother, softer this time, telling me he had started therapy and was working on himself. I deleted it. His growth was not my responsibility. It never had been. A year has passed since I left, and my life now is quiet in a way I didn't know I was allowed to want. Quiet without tension. Quiet without having to brace myself before speaking. Quiet without wondering if my value was being measured against someone else's bank account. I wake up in an apartment I chose, make coffee in a kitchen that feels like mine, and move through days that don't require me to perform. The job turned out to be everything the offer promised, and more. Within 6 months, I was promoted, not because I demanded recognition, but because I finally had the space to do my work without being diminished at home. I moved again, this time into a place with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that still makes me stop and stare some mornings. I started running again, something I had slowly abandoned because he used to joke that it was time better spent networking or planning our future. Funny how much time opens up when no one is quietly editing your life. I don't think about him often anymore, but when I do, it's with clarity instead of bitterness. I see now how the confidence that first attracted me was always paired with evaluation, how the jokes about money were never really jokes, how being cute for now was a placeholder position I never agreed to, but somehow occupied anyway. I didn't leave because I wanted to punish him. I left because staying would have meant agreeing with him about who I was worth. A few months ago, I met someone new. His name is Lucas. He's thoughtful in a way that doesn't announce itself. The first time we disagreed about something small, where to go for dinner, he paused and asked me what I wanted. Not as a test, not as a courtesy, as a genuine question. When I answered, he listened, adjusted, and smiled like that was the point all along. I went home that night and cried over something so simple it felt ridiculous. We're taking things slowly. No rushing, no grand declarations, no assumptions. He asks. He listens. When I speak, my words don't feel like interruptions. It's not dramatic. It's not cinematic. It's steady. And after everything I've lived through, that feels extraordinary. Someone told me recently that my ex got engaged. The man works in finance, family money, big ring, resort proposal. It sounded like the life he had been chasing all along. I didn't feel anything when I heard it. No jealousy, no vindication, just distance. I hope she's happy. I really do. Not because I forgave him, and not because I want anything from that chapter, but because carrying anger would mean he still occupied space in my life. The truth is, I didn't win because I got a better job or a nicer apartment. I won because I believed him when he told me who he was, and I trusted myself enough to leave. He wanted someone temporary while he searched for something better. I refused to be a placeholder. He said I was cute for now. He was right. I was temporary, on my terms. And when the moment came, I knew exactly when to walk away. People think the hardest part is leaving, but it isn't. Leaving is a single decision, followed by 1,000 small actions. The hardest part is living afterward without the noise you confused for love. It's learning how quiet can feel unsettling before it feels safe. In the first months after everything ended, I would still catch myself bracing for commentary that never came. I would choose what to wear, what to eat, how to spend a weekend, and wait for someone to weigh in. When no one did, the silence felt loud, almost accusatory, like I had forgotten an important rule. That feeling faded slowly. It faded the morning I realized I hadn't checked my phone first thing after waking up. It faded the afternoon I said no to a meeting because I didn't want to attend, not because I needed an excuse that sounded impressive enough. It faded the night I laughed out loud in my living room, alone, at something stupid on television, and didn't feel the urge to explain myself to anyone. I started noticing how different my body felt when it wasn't constantly on alert. My shoulders dropped, my jaw unclenched. I slept through the night without replaying conversations in my head, rewriting them in ways that made me smaller. I began trusting my instincts again, the ones I'd muted for so long because they were inconvenient to someone else's plans. At work, I found my voice in meetings without having to rehearse it. When I disagreed, I said so calmly, clearly, without apology. No one flinched. No one accused me of being difficult. They listened. Sometimes they agreed. Sometimes they didn't. But the respect stayed. That alone felt like a revelation. I decorated my space intentionally. Not for photos, not for approval. I bought art because it made me pause when I walked past it. I rearranged furniture because it felt better that way. I left a corner empty for months simply because I didn't know what I wanted there yet, and for the first time in my life, not knowing felt allowed. The emptiness wasn't a flaw. It was space. When Lucas came into my life, it didn't feel like a rescue or a reward. It felt like an addition. He didn't ask me to make room for him by shrinking. He stepped into the life I had already built and respected the shape of it. When I told him the story, not all at once, but in pieces, he didn't interrupt, didn't try to reframe it, didn't rush to tell me what it meant. He just listened. When I finished, he said, "That sounds lonely, and nothing else. That was enough." There were still moments that surprised me. An offhand joke from someone about marrying up. A comment about security or lifestyle that made my stomach tighten before I reminded myself I wasn't auditioning anymore. Those moments passed quicker each time. They lost their grip. The old fear didn't disappear overnight, but it stopped driving. I ran into Jenna at a conference months later. We hugged, exchanged updates, laughed about work. As we parted, she hesitated and said she was proud of me, not for leaving, not for succeeding, for choosing myself when it would have been easier to stay. I carried that with me longer than I expected. Sometimes late at night, I think about that dinner party, the table, the wine glasses, the laugh that landed wrong and changed everything. I think about how many times I had already known the truth before it was said out loud, how many moments I had softened for the sake of peace. I don't wish I had handled it differently. I'm grateful it happened the way it did. Some truths need an audience to become undeniable. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. Being temporary is not an insult when it's a choice. It becomes dangerous only when you forget you're allowed to leave. I didn't become someone else to prove him wrong. I didn't chase wealth to win an argument he started. I became more myself by walking away from a story where I was never meant to be permanent. I don't know what the future looks like in detail, and that no longer scares me. I know how it feels to listen to my own voice. I know how it feels to be chosen by myself first, and that has changed everything.